The top level of naked bikes has now reached an incredible 210 horsepower, with the BMW M 1000 are now defining the end of the food chain. However, Ducati's Streetfighter V4 S is anything but weak with 208 horsepower. Both are capable of brute performance, especially on the racetrack. But are these hyper-nakeds also suitable for the extremely narrow roads in the Alps? Or can they hardly run there for sheer power? It was a sensation when BMW presented the M1000R naked bike and even equaled the previous record of 208 horsepower with the mention of 210 horsepower. Not that the BMW with just 2 horsepower more than the Ducati Streetfighter V4 S would bring massively more performance, but compared to its own sister's 1000R, from which it takes over the chassis and many other components, it is a proud 45 horsepower more. The engine is also taken unabashedly and unchanged directly from the S1000 Double R Superbike, with all its strengths and weaknesses. I approached the task of testing the BMW M1000R and the Ducati Streetfighter V4 S in the tight corners of the Alps with corresponding intimidation. Would these powerhouses let me down completely in the lower rev range, only to throw me off as normal in the upper revs? Far from it, the BMW in particular works so homogeneously and well at all engine speeds that you wouldn't believe that this engine would also do its job in a superbike. There is already sufficient thrust from the lowest revs, and it can even be revved up powerfully from far below without jerking or any dips. The power then continues to increase until the Inferno begins at around 10,000 revs, but even that is easy to control, just not really usable for the narrow Alps with short straights. The Ducati is basically very similar, although it is a little bit sensitive in the lower rev range and therefore needs a little more sensitivity in tight bends, for example. The real difference, however, is the scent. While the BMW's inline four hums sonorously and raises its voice slightly when the throttle is opened, the Ducati's V4 is almost acily loud even at idle speed and roars even louder at higher revs. If you choose the Ducati, you should have neighbors who are very capable of suffering. In the best case, extremely hard of hearing. Tearing up the Streetfighter V4 at 7 o'clock in the morning could lead to nasty reactions from your neighbors. The two hyper-naked bikes are surprisingly similar in terms of ergonomic suspension, handling, and braking performance. You sit unexpectedly comfortably on both, naturally sporty and front-wheel oriented, but still upright enough to manage even longer stages. The suspension is the bigger obstacle, especially on the often poor roads in the Alps, as expected. It is wonderfully precise and sensitive on both, but many a pothole hits the backbone hard. On the other hand, tight bends are not a real problem. The BMW is extremely agile and handling thanks to the optional carbon rims and low weight, while the Ducati is hardly inferior to the Bavarian with a few extra kilos. Finally, neither of the two can afford to make any mistakes with the brakes.
Yeah.
Hard braking before the next bend is mastered with ease, even on bumpy roads. So there is definitely nothing to complain about. All in all, both the BMW M1000R and the Ducati Streetfighter V4 S surprised me in the Alps. Both get by largely without airs and graces or unpleasant behavior. The BMW is incredibly homogeneous. You wouldn't believe that this sociable and almost well-behaved motorcycle is the absolute top of the range for naked bikes. But the Ducati also does its job amazingly well and can even be moved in the tightest corners without much effort. This was not the case with the first generation of the Streetfighter V4. Nevertheless, the difference to the Bavarian is the engine. For all its sociability, the V4 of the Ducati is still a much rougher companion than the R4 of the BMW. Unfortunately, the dominant sound of the Italian is almost too intrusive. A little less would have been more. Conclusion on the Ducati Streetfighter V4 S 2023. Ducati has once again managed to improve the performance of the Streetfighter V4 S with targeted changes. Even though the performance data has not changed, the rideability has been significantly improved. The major changes were not to be expected for a bike that was already operating at the highest level. There is hardly anything to complain about with the current hyper-naked bikes anyway. When it comes to sound, the engineers have overshot the mark a little, whether at idle or when riding. The Streetfighter V4 S is simply too loud, particularly on fast routes. The wind pressure pushes the helmet against the nose and tenses the neck muscles enormously. But that's probably the price you have to pay if you want to ride a naked bike, just as you have to reckon with darkness at night. Conclusion on the BMW M1000 or 2023. The M1000R is definitely well done, and the whole package fits. Even if it is certainly aimed more at sporty riders, the bike can also prove itself well on longer country road rides with minor restrictions in terms of riding comfort. The lower straight handlebars and forward-facing riding position in combination with higher footrests automatically result in a sportier dynamic that doesn't give you that couch feeling, especially on longer rides. On the other hand, you have good contact with the front wheel and sufficient lean angle clearance. In combination with the powerful drive, the Hyper Naked definitely plays in the top league. Apart from slight vibrations, the powerful RR engine is a force to be reckoned with and currently has little competition to fear in the naked segment. The new electronics help even less experienced riders to release the concentrated power in a controlled manner with conservative settings. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Don't hesitate to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. To stay updated and ensure you don't miss any of our future videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Stay connected and stay tuned for more.